Hello there and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Friday, December the 27th, 2024. Friday already, the 362nd day of the year, National Fruitcake Day. Yeah, and who doesn't love a fruitcake, right? On the third day of the 12 days of Christmas, my true love gave to me 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. It is also day 3 of Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa has officially begun. And you remember how Vice President Harris loves to celebrate Kwanzaa. She did every year since she was a kid. The White House X account posting a very happy Kwanzaa from President Biden and the First Lady, who are now officially on vacation in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Inauguration Day is 24 days away. Then he will be on a permanent vacation. I'm not really sure why he needs a vacation now, or better yet, who is running the darn country, but it definitely isn't President Biden. More from Newsmax host Rob Astorino.
It's nice to know that President Biden's press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, is consistent. Listen.
When is the next time that people will hear from the president?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals.
If you missed that, Karine Jean-Pierre, KJP, was asked, when is the next time that people will hear from the president? To which she answered, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. Hypotheticals. It's hypothetical whether the president of the United States will address the American people and the media. Telling the truth has, well, let's be honest, has never been her forte, and she's been consistent about that since she started this gig. The only Joe Biden spottings that we've had has been boarding Air Force One for another junket. He's doing some hard-hitting legislation, though, in his final weeks. Maybe he's working aboard that big old plane. Well, he's not really trying to close the border with that legislation or ending biological men playing in women's sports or the lawlessness in our major cities or helping the economy. None of that. I mean, don't be silly. First, it was the commutation of 37 sentences for the dangerous death row inmates earlier this week. And then, thinking about his legacy, he officially made the bald eagle the national bird of the United States. It is pretty. And don't get me wrong, I love that bald eagle as much as the next guy. I don't really love the Philadelphia Eagles, but that's a whole other story. But I can think of 500 other things Joe Biden should be focused on in the final weeks of his presidency. And to top it all off, today, Joe Biden doing something he's gotten really good at during his presidency. Taking vacations. He and Jill off to St. Croix, getting in one last trip on taxpayers' dime. Because what's one more trip when you've spent 40% of your time as president on vacation? So as Joe Biden falls asleep with his mouth open on the sands of St. Croix, mutiny seems to be brewing at home. There was an op-ed in The Hill today. Congress has the power to block Trump from taking office, but lawmakers must act now. They never stop. So the party that's been exploiting January 6th, claiming it's an insurrection, is now using January 6th to commit their own insurrection to stop Trump before he gets to office. So legal scholars urging Congress to disqualify Trump under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, an amendment that says no person shall hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who having previously taken an oath to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Okay, just a little reminder, Donald Trump has never been charged with insurrection, and neither has any person charged for crimes committed at the Capitol grounds on that day. But, of course, they threw the book at Trump. Look at all those charges, like 86 of them against Trump overall. No insurrection charge whatsoever. You can't find it. And forget about the fact that the Supreme Court ruled that the states can't disqualify Trump from office over their insurrection allegations or even a political impeachment of which he was not convicted in the Senate. You know, Trump derangement syndrome, it's kind of like shingles. It lies dormant, but eventually can strike at any time.
That's Newsmax host Rob Astorino filling in on Finnerty last night. And again, this comes from an op-ed in The Hill suggesting that Congress block Trump from taking office. Remember this from Maryland Rep. Jamie Raskin, who essentially heads up the Democrats' Department of Hating Trump.
They want to kick it to Congress, so it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified, and then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions.
That was like 6-7 months ago. Rampaging Trump mobs. You mean the 77 million Americans that voted for him? Yesterday, there was a lot of talk from some of those same people about President-elect Trump continuing to troll Canada and its Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in some of his Christmas posts on Truth Social and on X. And as childish or unpresidential as some may see it, yesterday, several key members of Prime Minister Trudeau's cabinet came to Florida the day after Christmas to meet again with the Trump transition team over tariffs and immigration. This is Bob Brooks.
Okay, welcome to Greg Kelly Reports. I'm Bob Brooks, filling in for Greg Kelly tonight. Let's do this. Let's talk tariffs. Trump said he was going to use them time and time again. You heard him say stuff like this.
And I say the most beautiful word in the entire dictionary of words is the word tariff. I love tariff. I can make anybody do anything through the use of tariffs.
But while he was campaigning, you didn't hear much out of the establishment media about it. They kind of went radio silent on it. Instead of focusing on campaigning against Trump policies, offering maybe something else, they called him Hitler. Turns out the American people don't buy their BS anymore. But now that Trump is doing what he said he was going to do, which is following through with the mandate that the American people gave him, American companies are shaping up. They're taking notice. Several top companies getting ready for Trump's proposed tariffs. Shoe company Steve Madden, they're one of them. They plan to reduce China-made products by 45%. Toolmaker company Black & Decker, they've also begun to shift production away from China and back into the United States. Personal care consumer company Church & Dwight has reduced the size of its production in China. And now we just got to make sure, everybody, they don't just go to another country. The pressure's got to stay on. Bring the jobs, the manufacturing back home. But not everyone is going to get on board, as many Democrats continue to spread fear about more tariffs and what they would mean for the economy. But some on the opposition, they've kind of come around now. Other world leaders like Justin Trudeau. Trump said Canada better start helping out with the border in jugs or you will be tariffed. And here's what happens next.
I had a good call with Donald Trump last night again. We obviously talked about laying out the facts, talking about how the intense and effective connections between our two countries flow back and forth. We talked about some of the challenges that we can work on together. It was a good call. Laying out the facts, moving forward in constructive ways. This is a relationship that we know takes a certain amount of working on, and that's what we'll do.
What do you know? Another world leader falling into line. But leave it to CNN and other libbed-up media to spin lies regarding what damage the Trump tariffs could do. Here's a headline. Trump's tariffs could usher in a worst-case economic scenario not seen since the 1970s. It is to no surprise that CNN ratings are crashing and major layoffs are looming because they love to peddle lies and falsehoods about Trump whenever they can. They went along with the whole charade to throw him in jail. Think about that. Maybe CNN should take a look back at this. That Biden took office and he was handed a 1.4% inflation rate by President Trump. And on top of that, Biden kept Trump's tariffs in place. Look at this write-up from Politico. D.C. slammed Trump's tariffs. Biden's decision to keep them draws a very different reaction. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Bad if Trump uses them, good if Biden does. The left's double standards, I'm going to call it like this, everybody. It's gross. Trump using tariffs or threatening to use them against other countries is his negotiating tactic. It adds to that progress that he's making before he even gets back into office on January 20th. A few days ago, he put this out on Truth Social, a post. I told the European Union that they must make up their tremendous deficit with the United States by the large-scale purchase of our oil and our gas. Otherwise, it's tariffs all the way. The man means business, and the majority of the country was well aware of his intentions and put him right back into the Oval Office. Here's another headline meant to undermine his agenda. Trump vows new Canada, Mexico, China tariffs that threaten global trade. World leaders fear and respect Trump, everybody, and they understand his leadership. American trade will get back on track in other countries. They obviously will be held accountable. Isn't it nice to have a president who's fighting to try and bring back manufacturing? People from towns all across this country are depending on him to do just that. Look, everybody, I'm from Western Pennsylvania. I know what happens when the jobs leave. I sympathize with all of you. All right, back to Trudeau. Just a few weeks ago, he goes down to Mar-a-Lago. He shows up. He sits down with President Trump after those threats of tariffs. And you know what happened next? Multiple reports stated Canada's Trudeau says he had an excellent conversation with Trump after tariffs threat. Trump is getting more things done with the office of the president before he's even sworn in than Biden has done in 4 years. Trump has also had conversations with Mexico's leader just as well, resulting with very positive news, with one report saying this: President-elect Donald Trump declared a win on stopping illegal immigration through Mexico on Wednesday after talking with that country's leader. But Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum suggested Mexico was already doing its part and had no interest in closing its borders. We'll see how that turns out. He's also been meeting with business leaders listen to the SoftBank CEO announcing a large investment right here in the United States.
I'm thrilled to announce that SoftBank will be investing $100 billion in America, creating 100,000 American jobs at a minimum.
This is double of last time, as President Trump said. Because I say, President Trump is a double-down president. I'm going to have to double down.
How about this? Let Trump do his thing. He just won a landslide victory. He campaigned on using this method, but he also campaigned on getting inflation under control, the border under control, our standing on the world stage repositioned as the world's foremost superpower. And when it comes to inflation, one of the new talking points on MSNBC, of course, is now this.
Let's stop calling it a tariff. Let's call it a tax. It is a tax on consumer spending that will hit middle-class families and have exactly the opposite effect on inflation of everything we've talked about so far in this president's agenda.
All right. As I said before, he handed Biden a 1.4% inflation rate. That's like nothing. But also, after everything that we have all been through, how expensive this country has become under Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, don't you think the last thing in the world Trump would want is for things to get even worse? For the American dream of buying a home, putting food on the table, being able to have savings, maybe take a vacation, for all of that to become harder, it's the last thing he would want. It is a joke. The left's talking points are a joke. He's already proven he knows what he's doing with inflation, the economy. Again, I say this. Let the man get to work.
It's not like the media and the rest of the world didn't know that this was coming, right? Trump said it over and over during the campaign, sort of laying the groundwork.
And I say the most beautiful word in the entire dictionary of words is the word tariff. I love tariff. I can make anybody do anything through the use of tariffs.
How about this? Let Trump do his thing. He just won a landslide victory. He campaigned on using this method, but he also campaigned on getting inflation under control, the border under control, our standing on the world stage repositioned as the world's foremost superpower. And when it comes to inflation, one of the new talking points on MSNBC, of course, is now this.
Let's stop calling it a tariff. Let's call it a tax. It is a tax on consumer spending that will hit middle-class families and have exactly the opposite effect on inflation of everything we've talked about so far in this president's agenda.
All right. As I said before, he handed Biden a 1.4% inflation rate. That's like nothing. But also, after everything that we have all been through, how expensive this country has become under Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, don't you think the last thing in the world Trump would want is for things to get even worse? For the American dream of buying a home, putting food on the table, being able to have savings, maybe take a vacation, for all of that to become harder, it's the last thing he would want. It is a joke. The left's talking points are a joke. He's already proven he knows what he's doing with inflation, the economy. Again, I say this. Let the man get to work.
Bob Brooks is the co-host of American Agenda, 2 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. In one of Trump's Christmas Day posts on Truth Social, he urged NHL legend Wayne Gretzky to run for Prime Minister of Canada. I'm not sure if I mentioned that yesterday or not, but Gretzky's wife thought it was a great suggestion, and she shared Trump's post on her personal Instagram. There was also a lot of talk yesterday, and likely will be this weekend, about H-1B visas for foreign workers. And if you didn't hear about H-1B specifically, you may have heard something about Elon Musk talking about hiring foreign engineers and people disagreeing with him. Rob Schmitt explains.
It is that weird time of the year. The days are all blurring together. Most of us are barely working. Joe Biden is in the Caribbean. Washington is very quiet. But the H-1B visa has created drama in MAGA world as we barrel toward the new year with just 25 days until Trump takes over. The visa, part of the Immigration Act of 1990, allows companies to recruit foreign talent for specialty jobs, mostly in engineering, science, tech, that kind of thing. But many claim that there are loopholes that allow companies to use this visa to bring in cheap foreign labor to replace very expensive Americans. A tech entrepreneur named Sriram Krishnan was recently appointed by Trump to advise the White House on AI. This week, Krishnan is getting attacked by MAGA world for wanting to end the caps on these visas to allow more people from his native India to take these American jobs. MAGA world is out there saying this doesn't sound very America first. Controversy over the H-1B visa goes all the way back to Trump's first term and was covered like this by 60 Minutes back in 2017.
One of 220 IT workers replaced by H-1B visa employees. D'Angelo says his replacement, a worker from India, told him he was making half D'Angelo's salary with no benefits.
I didn't get laid off for lack of work. I got laid off because somebody cheaper could do my job.
I could be sitting at my desk and somebody would be flown in from another country, right? Sit at my same desk and chair and take over what I was doing. It was the most humiliating and demoralizing thing I've ever gone through.
You see it right there. It appears Trump's new AI advisor wants to end the caps on these kinds of visas, meaning more of them, right? And he's actually getting support for this from some of the most popular people in MAGA world, including Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and David Sachs. Vivek posting, the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over native Americans isn't because of the innate American IQ deficit, which he calls a lazy and wrong explanation. He says a key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers. And if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer than that. That doesn't start in college, it starts young, Vivek says. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Something to think about. Elon posting on Christmas Day, it comes down to this. Do you want America to win or do you want America to lose? If you force the world's best talent to play for the other side, America will lose. End of story. So their argument has been long held, right? Much of America's strength comes from skimming the cream, taking the best people from all around the world, which is what America has long done. Now, so far, Trump has not waded into this water yet because this is a very complicated issue. And both sides, as it stands, and as you've just seen, both sides have very strong points here, make very good points. But Trump has always said that his immigration stance is he wants to end illegal immigration, but he wants to protect and even expand legal immigration. Take a look.
I want a lot of people to come into our country, but I want them to come in legally.
The people that have been treated very unfairly are the people that have been online for 10 years to come into the country. And we're going to make it very easy for people to come in terms of they have to pass the test.
We want people to come into our country. A lot of people. We need them. We need them for jobs. We need them for everything. We want people to come in, but they have to come in through a process. They have to come in legally.
You see there. He hasn't weighed in specifically on the H-1B visa, but that's how he is on immigration, and you know that.
Okay, so there's all pretty much the background, right? And then Rob spoke with an immigration expert and a CEO about it.
Todd Bensman is an immigration expert who says these visas are bad news for the American worker. And Rick Jordan is the CEO of Reach Out Technology. He also works in AI. He says the visas are critically important. Good to see you both. Thanks for coming on. Todd, we've got Elon Musk and Vivek, who are two of the most popular Trumpers out there, who say that these H-1B visas must be protected and expanded. What's your position?
Well, those are a couple of guys who directly benefit from having cheap, slave-like labor coming in that they can replace American workers with. Elon Musk has 700 or 800 working for him. I'm here in Austin. This is where he builds the Tesla cars. I think the way to look at this is against the backdrop of the unemployed labor pool already among U.S. citizens here in the country. There is no shortage. There's an increase in unemployed U.S.-born citizens. The Center for Immigration Studies just came out with a couple of reports. They're up on our website, CIS.org, showing that the number of American-born, U.S.-born men and women who are on the sidelines rose from 17%, 16% just a few years ago, 2017, to 22% now. And the total number is like 43 million. I don't know how many of those are STEM, but it's a big labor pool here.
Well, let me bring in Rick, who's kind of on the other side of this. You say these visas are very needed. I guess, what is your answer to why Americans can't do these jobs?
Yeah, I think we're not making a good separation between where these visas really are needed. I mean, you brought up Elon Musk, right? And it's not 700 or 800. Just in 2024 alone, Tesla had 1,787 H-1B visas approved. Now, if you take a look at it from this, everybody benefits from Tesla, right? Maybe not the Cybertruck these days because the demand went down a bit, but Tesla as a whole is a very huge part of American culture. You know, of course, we've got Starlink and SpaceX that go right along with that. Yeah. There would not be those companies, those American companies, if this program did not exist in the way that it is. And I appreciate, ironically, because I'm not a huge Biden fan, that the Biden administration enacted this new rule, you know, because we've got people like entrepreneurs now that are with the new rule that goes into effect where foreign entrepreneurs can come over and essentially apply for their own H-1B visa through their new company. Well, I think there should be restrictions on that, especially industry-wise. So let's say cybersecurity. But if we've got a really smart person that can go to bat for us against China or Russia, let's let them in.
Yeah. I mean, Todd, when I listen to your argument, you make good points. I think there's actually excellent points on both sides of this. I mean, that's why Trump's not touching it, at least not yet. But I think the one fault that I see in your argument is that you say that, you know, Elon supports it because he's got a vested interest. I don't think Elon Musk cares at all about how much money it costs him to run Tesla. I mean, he's blown tons of cash, and I think in the name of doing what he thinks is right. So it seems hard for me to believe that Elon supports this visa because he wants to save a few bucks at Tesla.
Well, okay, maybe Elon, as the richest man in the world, may be less profit motivated, although I'm sure he wants to turn a profit. But keep in mind, in recent weeks since the election, we've seen a whole bunch of Silicon Valley types go to Mar-a-Lago hat in hand, Mark Zuckerberg, et cetera. And I venture to say that, or to guess, that they're not there just to say hello, congratulations. They have interests, which is cheap labor, cheaper labor than what they'd have to pay a U.S. citizen. And that all equals profit. This is really about profit, not so much about filling jobs that Americans won't do.
That's immigration expert Tom Bensman on Rob Schmitt Tonight. Bensman, by the way, wrote a book titled Overrun: How Joe Biden Unleashed the Greatest Border Crisis in U.S. History. So he says the H-1B visa is all about profit, right? Vivek and Elon and supporters of it say it's all about getting the best people to make the best products for American companies to make America the best. My question is, if the foreign workers that are working at whatever the job is here in the United States, right, mainly tech companies, aren't they paid the same or pretty much the same as everyone else at that company doing the same job? I mean, you can't take someone from China or India and have them work in California, say, or wherever, and pay them like they're working in China or India, right? This is not about overseas workers getting paid less like many apparel companies. This is about keeping them in America and having them work here, which is taking jobs from Americans potentially, but I'm not really sure how it's saving money. I need some clarification on all that. I hope you understand what I'm saying and asking. Remember the other day I mentioned it was Festivus, right? Well, I forgot all about Senator Rand Paul's annual Festivus report. This is Carl Higbie.
It is that time of year again for Rand Paul's Festivus report. Oh, I love this. He reminds us that, in 2024, we borrowed over $268 million every hour, $4.5 million every minute. That comes out to us borrowing $74,401 every second, which is almost the median income of Americans every second. And Doge, let's just say, you have a target-rich environment this year.
What about the support, though, for the charging network? I mean, there are parts of this bill. And no?
No. I mean, do we need support for gas stations? We don't. So there's no need for this for support for a charging network. I would delete it. Delete.
That's going to be the word of 2025. I mean, but just some other examples that we need to delete. Just this past year, Rand Paul's office found over $1 trillion worth of waste, okay? 1/5 of the money the government takes in was just wasted. Before we can even talk about waste, we got to talk about the fact that this year alone, America will pay almost $1 trillion in interest on the money we already borrowed on the $36 trillion of national debt. This alone is the greatest case to not give a penny in foreign aid to any other country until we can afford things we have here in America that we need to spend money on. I don't know, like North Carolina disaster relief. But just for perspective, Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, super successful, that has outperformed the market over the last 3 decades. That company's total value would basically only pay the interest of America's debt for 1 year if you confiscated all of its assets. Some of the easiest cuts right out the gate are the billions that really just pop up on the radar, honestly. The first one, of course, is out of the Defense Department, where the U.S. Navy, my people, okay, they spent $90 billion on vessels that don't work, some of them don't float, can't dock, and don't do what they're supposed to do. $90 billion. These ships had cracks in their hulls, the transmissions were grinding their own gears to pieces, and if the crew went to fix it, too bad. The manuals were all written in the wrong language. Yes, the U.S. Navy had their owner's manual from a third-party contractor written in not English. I mean, great job. Anchors away, right? Imagine paying for a Hatteras boat, waiting, I don't know what they waited, like 8 or 10 years to get it. And then when it gets to you, you want to go on a fishing trip somewhere, and it's been never tested, plagued with problems. You would sue that company and get your money back. But no, not the U.S. Navy. They just threw up their arms and ordered more boats. Let's see if those boats actually work this time around. And it gets even worse. We are still falling behind the world's production for 25 years. I mean, think about that. Despite spending more money than ever before.
Check this out, though. We also spent $10 million to maintain, lease, and furnish almost entirely empty buildings. And we've talked about this before, but when I say entirely, I literally mean that there are more people maintaining the building than actually working in it. Think about that. Here's another one. The Department of Energy, the DOE, spent $15.5 billion to push America to electric cars. This is totally in addition to like other money for subsidies, credits, and the worthless charging stations that came at like $1 billion per one. This is its own standalone like PR campaign. I'm sure none of that money made it into a special interest person's pocket, right?
And the list goes on and on and on. That's Carl Higbie, host of Frontline, 5 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. On Wall Street, the stock markets opened up in the red again today. Pretty deep in the red. The Dow off more than 150 points. The NASDAQ was off more than 100. Thursday's weekly jobless claims report, the number of Americans filing for unemployment, came in at 219,000. That was a little bit below the estimate, but it showed that there are currently 1.9 million unemployed Americans, which is the highest it's been in 3 years. Top business headline, or one of the top business headlines, German discount grocery store Aldi said it plans to expand into at least 9 more states this year, and after buying the Florida-based Winn-Dixie chain, is converting many of the old Winn-Dixie stores into Aldi stores. Last but not least, tonight's Mega Millions jackpot is up to $1.15 billion. So if you're in the grocery store, stopping for gas, or out anywhere, you may want to pick up a ticket or two. $1.15 billion. So if I'm not here on Monday, either something terrible happened to me or I won. And honestly, I'd probably do the podcast just to let you know I won and that I won't be doing it anymore. Be sure to keep up with all of the news today and throughout the weekend, as well as breaking developments on Newsmax, N2, and Newsmax.com. Beginning each and every morning with Wake Up America. Wake Up America Weekend Edition beginning at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday Report, Saturday and Sunday Agenda, America Right Now with Tom Basile, Ambassador Nancy Brinker, documentaries, and much more throughout the weekend on Newsmax and Newsmax 2. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Appreciate that. And once again, I hope you're having a fantastic holiday week, doing whatever you're doing. If you're on vacation throughout the week, good for you. Enjoy it. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.